As a customer experience leader or manager, your goal is to advocate for what our customers need. And, going back to data, that needs to be backed with mountains of data and mountains of actual information, tangible information that you can then bring as kind of like proof or as an argument.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Hello, and welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Doron Pryluk, Vice President of Customer Experience at GlassesUSA.com. Doron is a leader in customer experience, with over a decade of experience scaling up customer solutions and professional services teams for companies such as Wix, Guesty, and now GlassesUSA. As an entrepreneur and business owner himself, Doron brings an array of knowledge about how to create outstanding customer experiences and teams. Doron Pryluk, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Wow, we're going to have a great time. I have way too many questions to even begin talking about your incredible journey in some of the most incredible companies, from Wix to VP Customer Experience at Guesty to VP of Customer Experience currently at GlassesUSA, all incredible companies with many more in the middle that I don't even have time to mention now, but are also incredible, a Jolt instructor. But I have to start off with you as a coach for the Special Olympics. I know you're an athlete.
Wow. Right.
Let's start over there. What is that? How do you do that?
So that takes me back like almost 20 years ago, which makes me feel kind of old, which is fine. I am kind of old. But actually I did it for a year. There's a thing in Israel called Shnat Shirut, or I guess, gap year, community service year, or whatever. And I lived in O Yehuda, and we did a lot of educational stuff. And for me, I was already into sports, and I was looking for some like extracurricular volunteering type of activities to do. And I stumbled upon Special Olympics, ended up coaching soccer and basketball, and it was just exposed to an amazing international organization that until this day just does amazing initiatives, even in Israel to this day, by the way. So
I love it. I actually watch much more of the Special Olympics than the regular Olympics. I think most people should transition most of their viewing time there, because I think that there's too many life lessons to be learned and too much inspiration to be gained.
Absolutely.
Customer experience as a position.
Yes.
What is that?
So it's funny, I think a lot of people still to this day kind of get confused. Let's take a step back. I think to me the best way to understand customer experience, and when I teach my customer experience course at Jolt, the first thing I do is I play a 2-minute video by Jeff Bezos from 1999. It became super famous. I think it was coined like the internet schminternet speech. It was like an interview. If you haven't seen it, Google it after. And it's 1999, right? And Jeff Bezos basically makes a whole spiel about how customer experience is going to make or break Amazon. Fast forward, 2 decades later, he had some knowledge or some understanding of the value of customer experience. So today there's like, I don't know if I should call it streams or like different elements or schools that comprise the big term or field of customer experience. It can be support, it can be self-service, it can be knowledge management, it can be customer success. By the way, to me, customer success is an integral part of customer experience. Again, obviously, depending on the type of company, brand, service, or whatever you're talking about. But to put very simply, and I'm sorry if it sounds like a cliche, but customer experience is how your brand makes customers feel. And again, it's something I repeat all the time to my students. Customer experience is, yes, we have KPIs and, there's a lot of data and a lot of measurement and you have to be able to be data driven. But at the end of the day, it's also something very intangible that you can't really grab hold on and feel. And it's really about a whole holistic set of things that at the end just incite and trigger emotions with your end customer or user.
Right.
I know it's a bit vague maybe, but that to
no. It makes perfect sense. But my question is, I throughout my courses in this field, I keep coming back to this moment of delight of the customer. Right. What is the delight moment, right? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I wonder 20 years ago, did people ask themselves, what is the delight moment of our product? I don't recall in literature or looking at case studies of companies 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that customers were so much in the forefront to the effect that it is today. How do you explain this transition that we went under here?
Right. So that delight moment that you're talking about was coined as the wow. Zappos was very famous to coining that wow effect or wow moment, and a lot of companies try to mimic it to this day. I really think it's about very carefully crafting a set of different initiatives and different experiences and different touch points. And it's really important to remember that the way customers feel, and again, I keep going back to feelings because emotions are a very strong part of customer experience, okay? And again, we can measure everything, but at the end of the day, it's emotions, it's feelings. And customers have those emotions before they even use your product or your brand or your service. It begins way before that. It begins with word of mouth. It begins with some review they read on Trustpilot. It begins with some word of mouth or some post that they saw on any type of social media platform, and it's just there's so many elements and so many factors involved into that.
Incredible. And if you're looking at the way that you're thinking about customers within an organization, 360 degrees, and now you have the customer portion of this organization. Early 2022, I feel a little confused about where priorities are, when to start thinking about this concretely within our human resources, how big a part is in our team. How do you go about resolving this as a leader, as vice president of customer experiences, not in one, but in several organizations, and having seen this transition the world has gone through in the last 20 years?
Great question. So first, I'll start with a disclaimer. I'm not trying to bash any of my amazing product managers and product executive colleagues, and again, it's a generalization also. But I've seen in a lot of organizations, product leaders, the first thing they do when they talk about go-to-market or developing a new product or feature or whatever is they go and they do competitor analysis, right? What do our competitors do? What's out there? How do we break through the cluster and so on and so forth? And again, not all of them, but that is like the classic approach. And oftentimes those leaders forget, and those product managers forget to go and do customer interviews and go speak to customers and go understand exactly what the customer needs. And then do some iterations, do some MVPs, and learn from that. And I think when a big part of being a customer experience leader in any type of company, any type of organization, is being able to, let's be honest, it's a daily, I don't want to say war, but it's a daily struggle because the blanket is always too small. Resources are being pulled from every single direction. There's scarce resources, right? There's never enough R&D and budgets and talents to do everything. And as a customer experience leader or manager, your goal is to advocate for what our customers need. And, going back to data, that needs to be backed with mountains of data and mountains of actual information, tangible information that you can then bring as kind of like proof or as an argument. But it's not easy, right? You are basically in the center, in the heart of the company, trying to kind of like be the knight and be that one person that's always putting the customer or the customers at the forefront when
right.
plans are
And
being
the struggle doesn't end in the product specifications and the PRD and all that analysis. That's just where it starts, because now you've actually attracted the customers, and now the experience, now the majority of the experience is beginning, right?
Right. And then we talk about, I was using the leaky bucket as an example in a recent post that I wrote, and then retention comes into play and churn, and how do we get repeat customers, and how do we increase lifetime value, and there's so many metrics. But again, I really, really think at the end of the day, and I've seen examples in my career, and I think there's plenty of examples throughout history of companies that were able to, and I know now it's like a worn out and it's like a buzzword that everybody uses, but this customer obsession or customer centricity, or call it whatever you want, but being able to focus on the customer in every single decision making, every single planning, every single move that you do, like you said, in the planning stage, and then after when there's an MVP, or when you're already, when you already launched your product or your service or a new feature, you always have to focus on what's going on with my customers. Is it working? What's the voice of customer? Do I listen to the feedback? Do I make iterations based on feedback? And again, it's very, very difficult, right? Because every single manager and stakeholder in the company, and again, I'm not trying to bash anyone. We all have our KPIs, and we all have our, end of quarter, end of year goals that we need to meet. But sometimes, when we focus on those so-called vanity matrix, and we don't think about, okay, what's our customers wanting from us, and are we meeting those expectations? That is the long-term road to success, in my opinion.
What do you get really good at as a leader in customer experience? Seeing company after company, seeing all these different examples, watching the evolution take place. What do you personally get really good at? So
listen, I think let's take let's take Wix and Guesty as an example. At Wix, I've seen customer obsession when it wasn't even like such a big buzzword, really propelling and accelerating the company. Obviously, it wasn't the only contributing factor, right? It was an amazing product and a lot of other things that contributed to the stellar success of the company. But this is a company that was customer centric from day one. And I've seen the contribution to the success of Wix. Then in Guesty, I've seen how being customer centric and focused on customers helped a prop tech company navigate through probably one of the most difficult times for a prop tech company to operate in, right? Through the pandemic, through unforeseeable challenges, and so on and so forth. And that those relationships that the company was able to build with the customer base was huge in terms of enabling coming out of it even stronger. And so, as I said, I think if companies are able to really stay focused on the customers at any given moment in their life cycle, regardless of did they just raise a huge round of funding, or are they just releasing the first MVP, or are they a well-established company that that has been around for a decade, 2 decades, whatever. Once you lose that connection to your customers, it's probably not a good sign.
Right. So one of the things that, just about that I'm always so curious about, I'm imagining myself in a leadership situation within a startup, and I'm, pushing forward and I'm making daily decisions. How do I know when there's red flags that come about, especially when it comes to my users and customers, right? Because sometimes it feels like the leadership can be so disconnected from the end users who are actually receiving the product and saying, okay, this is not what I actually expected. How can startups at any stage think through, what are those red flags?
So it's a good question. I'll try to give as simple as answer as I can. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors that can be involved. But to me, it's finding a good balance between the more hands-on and more personal experience, and I'll explain what I mean, and the data-driven experience, data-driven approach. Data-driven, I think we all understand. You need to be able to have thresholds and have alerts and have very clear KPIs. In a recent interview, I talked about the contacts per order, which is a KPI that Amazon famously used for many, many years. Or in other words, what's the ratio between the interactions that I have with my customers to the ratio of orders that I get from my customers. And it's such a simple yet powerful KPI. And it can be translated and mimicked regardless of what company you're working. So that's number one. Data has to be always at the forefront. And then the other side of the coin is the more personal aspect. And I always use the Brian Chesky example. He was interviewed in Masters of Scale by Reid Hoffman, and he's telling about his first days in the Y Combinator, and he's in San Francisco, doing the whole accelerator and that stuff. And then someone asked him, like, "Wait, your customers are in New York and you're in San Francisco right now?" And this is back in the day when they had, like, I don't know, a few dozen hosts, and they're all in New York City. The next day he's on a flight to New York, knocking on the doors of the hosts, sitting down with them for coffee and just listening to them. What's working for you? What's not working for you? What's your challenges in terms of managing a short-term rental property, and so on and so forth. And I think those user interviews are so critical. And sometimes you can have all the data in the world and amazing BI and data teams and everything is in place. If you don't also add that personal dimension and create some sort of mix and balance between those two, you're probably missing a lot of very valuable data points and touch points that you want to be able to get like a feel for.
I think also what I'm getting from this story, that perhaps it's not just about the user interviews, and it's about the decision to act quickly. I mean, a huge part of this is the unconventional idea that he'll get on a plane the next day, go to New York, and probably shift around a lot of priorities to make sure that there is room for this. And I think that it comes down to a deeper question of, are we, the good leaders, are these the leaders that know how to prioritize when, either shit hits the fan and it's too late, but also know to periodically check in and prioritize these things above the day-to-day craze that's happening, especially as we're seeing the market today, that the expectation is to evolve way faster than your customers can evolve with you. And I think that those are some really interesting points. But Doron, take me back a little bit, way back, before Special Olympics and the Shnat Shirut. Growing up, what are you fascinated about? I'm guessing it's not the lean startup and all these different case studies. What were you deeply curious about?
Not yet. It may sound funny, but I was deeply, and I'm still, by the way, deeply fascinated by Lego. To this day, I'm an avid Lego collector.
Wow.
And I build Lego all the time. I was trying to think about it before the interview, and to me, what really drew me, and I think what still draws me to Lego, is there's no limits, right? Yes, there's specific packages that you buy, and you have a set of instructions, and everything is laid out for you. But when I was a kid, it was like you have, a mountain full of bricks, and you can do whatever you want with them. And I know it sounds a bit, childish, but it excites me to this day. There's no limits. There's so many there's endless possibilities. And I have it. To this day, I have a Lego addiction.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Sources of inspiration for you in the world as you walk around, what makes you stop and, we just stop and wonder for a few minutes?
So I hope it doesn't sound dark. I've come across a lot of inspirational stories, and I post about a lot of inspirational stories that touch me. But if we're talking about inspiration as a source of motivation, to me, it's not really inspirational stories of success or anything like that. I feel like I have an innate fear in me of mediocrity. It's something that haunts me on a daily basis with everything that I do. It's just a genuine fear of mediocrity. And I know I know it sounds maybe a bit dark, but to me, this is my biggest motivation. I can hear the most inspirational stories. And again, I'm very fortunate. I hear a lot of inspirational stories probably on a daily basis. But at the end of the day, what really, puts the fire under my, under my bum and gets me going is that innate fear of mediocrity and maybe failure. So.
Okay. Doron, I really, really want to thank you. This was so enjoyable. The time went by way, way too fast. And I appreciate your time and your energy and your effort and the work that you're doing. And I can't wait to continue learning a lot from you and your work. So thank you, and stay safe and stay healthy.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.